I never thought I'd find the gift I spent months saving for, lying on top of a pile of coffee grounds and eggshells. The smell of old food mixed with metal hit me before I even realized what I was looking at. It was the locket, the one I'd hidden in my drawer, wrapped in tissue paper. The one I'd saved every spare dollar from my campus job to buy. My heart dropped so hard I thought I might throw up right there beside the trash can. Please stay with me till the end of this story, because what happened next changed the way I see family forever. And if you've ever trusted someone you shouldn't have, you'll understand exactly how this felt. I'm Zyna Cole. I'm 21, studying nursing, and I've always been the quiet daughter. The one who does the right thing, who remembers birthdays, who never talks back. My mom, Della Cole, raised me and my sister Cameron alone after our dad left when we were kids. She worked 2 jobs, sometimes skipped dinner so we could eat. I always wanted to make her proud, to remind her she wasn't alone. That's why I bought the locket. It wasn't expensive, but it was special, a small gold heart engraved with the words, "For the woman who taught me love." I imagined her opening it, smiling, maybe crying a little. That was supposed to be her moment. Instead, the night before her birthday, I found it in the garbage. It was smeared with food and bent out of shape. I picked it up with shaking hands, trying to clean it with a napkin, but the words were still stained. My first thought was, maybe Mom threw it away by mistake. But deep down, I already knew who had done it. Cameron, my 25-year-old sister, could charm a room with one laugh. She was the favorite child, always the center of attention, always the one Mom defended, no matter what she did. I remembered how she used to take my things, even as kids, my clothes, my books, even my praise. Whenever I told Mom, she'd just say, "She's your sister, Zyna. Let it go." So when Cameron walked into the kitchen that night, her voice soft and casual, I already knew what she'd say. "Oh, that. It was an accident," she said, glancing at the locket like it meant nothing. "I think it fell off the counter when I was cleaning." My chest tightened. There was no reason for her to be near my drawer, near my wrapped gift. "Right," I said quietly, even though my gut screamed she was lying. She smiled, that fake, confident smile that always got her out of trouble, and walked away like nothing had happened. But as I stood there, holding that ruined locket, I felt something shift inside me. It wasn't just anger. It was the beginning of something sharper, colder. A quiet promise that this time, I wouldn't let it go. Growing up, I was always the quiet one. The one who followed the rules, did her chores, and waited for her turn to be seen. Cameron never waited for anything. She walked into every room like it was built for her. Even when we were little, she knew how to make people laugh, how to twist a story so she came out shining. I used to admire that, until I realized it always came at my expense. I remember being 10, spending hours drawing a Mother's Day card with tiny hearts and flowers. When Mom showed it to our aunt, Cameron smiled and said, "We made it together." She hadn't even touched it. Mom believed her, hugged us both, and I just stood there, holding the truth in my throat. That's how it always was. Cameron did something wrong. I stayed quiet, and Mom told me to be the bigger person. Now, years later, sitting across from them at dinner, I could still feel that same ache. Mom had made her favorite stew. Cameron sat at the table, laughing like nothing had happened, telling stories about her job and her funny customers. Her nails sparkled under the light, perfectly manicured, while my fingers still smelled faintly of metal from trying to clean the broken locket. "So, Zyna," Mom said between bites, "you're quiet tonight. Everything okay?" I forced a small smile. "Yeah, just tired from classes." Cameron chuckled, leaning back in her chair. "Maybe she's mad at me for tossing her junk by mistake," she teased, and Mom laughed like it was harmless. My stomach twisted. Mom shook her head. "You girls are always bickering about something small. You'll be fine tomorrow." But I wasn't fine. Not this time. I kept my eyes on my plate, tuning out Cameron's laughter. I could hear her phone buzzing under the table. Probably one of her friends. I wondered if she'd brag about it again like she did before, laughing about how she taught me a lesson. When dinner ended, I excused myself and went to my room. I sat on the edge of my bed, holding the locket again. It was bent but not destroyed. I ran my thumb over the words, "For the woman who taught me love." They were scratched but still there. I decided I'd fix it. Not for Cameron, and not to prove anything. I just wanted Mom to have it, because she deserved something real, something that came from the heart. As I placed the locket carefully on my desk, I felt the thin thread of trust between me and Cameron snap completely. All my life, I had let things go. But that night, I knew I couldn't do it anymore. Something in me had changed. I was done being the quiet sister. I didn't know what I'd do yet, but I knew one thing for sure. Cameron's days of walking over me were over. The house smelled like jollof rice and vanilla candles, the kind my mom loved to light on special occasions. It was her birthday dinner, and the living room was full of relatives, family friends, and neighbors who'd known us since we were little. Laughter filled the air, plates clattered, and music played softly in the background. Mom looked radiant in her bright blue dress, smiling as she hugged everyone who came through the door. For a moment, everything felt peaceful, almost perfect. Cameron was in her element, floating from guest to guest, greeting everyone with that polished charm she wore like perfume. I stayed in the kitchen, double-checking the cake and trying to calm the storm building inside me. I'd fixed the locket the night before. It wasn't perfect, but it looked good enough to give. It meant something. It still held love. When it was finally time for gifts, everyone gathered around Mom. Phones were out, recording. Cameron stepped forward first, handing Mom a glossy designer bag with a silver logo. "It's from that new collection," Cameron said proudly. The room buzzed with admiration. "Oh, Cameron, it's beautiful." Mom gushed, her eyes sparkling. "You always have such taste." I smiled faintly, clutching my small box. When the noise died down, I stepped forward and handed it to her. "This one's from me, Mom," I said softly. My voice trembled, but I forced myself to meet her eyes. She unwrapped it carefully. When she opened the box, she gasped, her fingers brushing over the repaired locket. "Oh, Zina, this is lovely." Before she could say more, Cameron's voice sliced through the room like a blade. "Wait, isn't that the one she threw away?" The chatter died instantly. Heads turned. I froze. "What?" Mom's smile faltered. Cameron shrugged innocently, tilting her head. "I saw it in the trash the other day. I guess she changed her mind." A few people chuckled awkwardly. Mom's face turned red, embarrassed, confused. My chest burned. I wanted to defend myself, to shout the truth, but I didn't. I just smiled weakly and said, "It must have been a mix-up." My voice cracked on the last word. Mom nodded stiffly and closed the locket box. The warmth of the room suddenly felt heavy, suffocating. I could feel people's eyes on me, whispering under their breath. I'd spent months saving for that gift, and in seconds, Cameron had turned it into something shameful. After the guests left and the house grew quiet, I went to the kitchen for air. That's when I heard laughter from Cameron's room. Her voice low and smug. Yeah, she really thought she could outshine me. Consider it a little lesson. My heart pounded. My hands clenched so tight my nails dug into my skin. That night, something inside me snapped. For years, I'd let her win. But not this time. Cameron thought she'd taught me a lesson. She was about to learn one of her own. The days after the birthday dinner felt like walking through fog. Everything looked normal on the surface. Mom humming in the kitchen, Cameron laughing on the phone. But underneath, something had shifted. I stopped trying to make things right. I stopped defending myself. Instead, I went quiet. Cold but polite. I said good morning, I smiled when expected, but inside I was building walls. Cameron must have thought I'd moved on. She strutted around the house like nothing happened, posting pictures from the party, captioned "Family First 2 Hearts." Every time I saw it, I wanted to scream. But I didn't. I watched. I learned. At first, I didn't plan anything. I just started noticing things. The way she'd slip into Mom's room when she wasn't home. The way her tone changed when she talked on the phone, sweet to Mom, sharp to everyone else. One day, while Cameron was at work, I overheard her call. She was arguing with someone about payments being late. When she hung up, I checked the counter. Her purse was open, and I saw a credit card, Mom's name printed in gold. That was the moment everything clicked. Cameron wasn't just cruel. She was careless. She worked at a high-end boutique downtown. Sometimes she'd come home with bags of clothes and jewelry, saying, "They gave me a discount." But the tags were still attached, and the receipts always looked off. I didn't need to accuse her. I just started keeping track. I took pictures of the new items she brought home. Screenshots of texts she left open on her laptop. Receipts she forgot in the trash. I became quiet and observant, like a shadow in my own house. When I needed to vent, I called my roommate, Araya. She knew the whole story. One night, as I sat in my dorm room with my laptop open and a folder of evidence staring back at me, she said, "Zina, you're playing with fire." I didn't look up. Fire's the only thing that changes steel. She sighed. Just don't let her turn you into her. I didn't answer, but her words stayed in my head. Still, every time I thought about that ruined locket, about the way Cameron humiliated me in front of our family, I knew I couldn't stop. This wasn't about revenge for revenge's sake. It was about justice, about balance, about finally letting the truth stand on its own. I kept my distance from Cameron, letting her believe she'd won. But inside, I was planning something bigger than payback. I wasn't going to yell, or fight, or make a scene. I was going to make her lies crumble under their own weight. Slowly, publicly. And when the moment came, she'd realize too late that the quiet sister she mocked had been watching her all along. I found the statement by accident. I was looking for a copy of Mom's phone bill to check a number when I saw an envelope with the bank's logo sticking out from under a pile of coupons. My hands shook as I opened it. The credit card account under Mom's name had dozens of charges I didn't recognize. Expensive dinners, late-night online orders, even a payment to a boutique downtown. The total was nearly at the limit. At first I thought it was a mistake. Maybe a fraud alert, maybe a scam. But the dates matched days Cameron had been home, and one of the charges listed the boutique where Cameron worked. I sat down on the kitchen floor, the paper crumpling in my hand, and felt something cold spread through me. My mind ran back to the little things. The purse with new tags, the receipt she said Mom had given her, the way she slipped into Mom's room and came out with a story ready. It all fit together like pieces snapping into place. I didn't want to believe it. I wanted to scream, to run to Mom and tell her everything. But I also knew how Mom was. She would protect Cameron without even thinking, make excuses, cry, blame herself. I couldn't let her find out in a panic, or worse, let Cameron spin it into another story that made her look like the victim. If I was going to do this, I had to be smart. I had to be sure. So I started keeping quiet and looking closer. I copied the statement, took photos on my phone, and made a list of the suspicious charges. I matched dates to times Cameron had posted about going out with friends. I found messages on a shared tablet where Cameron had texted someone about covering me this month, and I'll pay you back when I can. Her handwriting on an old napkin I'd found in the trash matched a name on one of the boutique receipts. The more I found, the angrier I got, not just because of the money, but because of the betrayal. Mom worked 2 jobs to keep us fed and safe. She didn't deserve to have her card used behind her back by the daughter she loved most. The locket in the trash flashed through my mind again, and the memory twisted into something sharp. This wasn't petty stealing. This was a long, slow betrayal. I thought about confronting Cameron right then, about throwing the copies at her and watching her face fall. But where would that leave Mom? With fewer answers and more heartbreak. No, I needed a plan. I needed a time and place where the truth would land hard and clear, where everyone who'd been fooled by Cameron's charm would see the real picture. The family reunion next month felt like the perfect moment. Cameron loved being the star at those gatherings. She'd bask in compliments and attention. That's when her mask would mean the most, and that's when the fall would mean the most too. I stored the photos and statements in a hidden folder on my laptop, printed a clean copy to keep in my room, and watched Cameron from a careful distance. She bragged on the phone about outfits and how she'd wow everyone. I smiled politely and let her glow. Inside, I was readying the proof that would finally make her accountable. When Mom asked for help organizing the family reunion, I raised my hand before Cameron could even blink. Everyone looked surprised, especially Cameron, who usually took over every event like it was her stage. "I'll handle the decorations and the slideshow," I said calmly. Mom smiled, relieved. Cameron just gave me that suspicious side eye, the kind she used when she couldn't tell if I was being kind or clever. That night, I opened my laptop and started building the presentation. On the surface, it was a sweet idea, a tribute video for Mom, showing our family memories over the years. I went through old photos, grainy videos from birthdays, and moments of laughter that still made my chest ache. Each picture reminded me how much my mom had sacrificed for us, how hard she had worked to keep us together. That love was what I wanted to honor. But between those moments, I started placing the truth. It began subtly, screenshots of bank statements showing Cameron's unauthorized purchases. A message exchange between her and a co-worker gossiping about borrowing boutique merchandise. Photos I'd taken of those missing items lying on her bed. And finally, one short clip I'd recorded that still made my stomach twist. A voice memo of Cameron laughing with her friend after the birthday party, mocking me for fixing the locket. "She's so desperate to be noticed," she had said. Poor little Zina. I listened to that clip again and again, my chest tightening each time. I didn't want to destroy her. I wanted her to face what she'd done, in front of the same people she'd fooled for years. I wanted the truth to breathe. Still, as I pieced it all together, I felt doubt creeping in. Was I being cruel? Was I turning into her? Late at night, the glow of my laptop lit up my tear-streaked face. I stared at the photo of us as kids, me holding a drawing, her holding my crayons like they were hers. It had always been this way. Maybe I should just delete the evidence, keep peace, keep quiet like always. I closed the laptop and pressed my palms against my eyes. The tears came fast, hot, and silent. I didn't want revenge. I wanted freedom, from the constant pretending, from always being the one who swallowed her pain. When the tears finally stopped, I opened my drawer and took out the repaired locket. The engraving still shone faintly under my lamp. For the woman who taught me love. The memory of finding it buried in garbage flashed before me, sharp and unforgiving. That moment had broken something inside me, and maybe this was the only way to heal it. I wiped my eyes, straightened up, and whispered to the empty room. This isn't about hurting her. It's about truth. Then I saved the final version of the video, labeled it Mom's Tribute, and closed my laptop with trembling hands. The decision was made. There was no going back now. The garden was alive with laughter and music, the scent of barbecue mingling with the summer air. Cousins chased each other between tables draped in pastel linens. Aunties shared gossip beneath the string lights, and uncles argued cheerfully over who'd aged the most gracefully. The annual family reunion had never looked so perfect, at least on the surface. And at the center of it all, as always, was Cameron. Her laughter was loud, confident, charming. She wore a white sundress that shimmered when the light caught it, her hair styled just right. Every few seconds, her phone flashed as she took selfies with adoring relatives. "You haven't changed at all, Cameron," one aunt squealed. "Still our family's shining star." Zina stood a few feet away, a polite smile fixed to her face. She'd worked tirelessly for this moment, organizing decorations, food, and even a tribute video she'd framed as a surprise for their mom. She played the role of the quiet helper, the responsible sister in the background. But beneath her calm expression, her stomach twisted with anticipation. When everyone had eaten, Zina stood up and tapped her glass lightly. "Can I have everyone's attention, please?" she said, her voice steady. "Before dessert, I put together something special for Mom. A little trip down memory lane." Applause followed. Cameron clapped the loudest. "Ah, Z, you're so thoughtful," she cooed, completely unaware of the storm about to break over her perfect world. The screen came alive with home videos, birthdays, graduations, and family trips. Everyone laughed and reminisced. Then came the photos of their late father, and a hush fell over the crowd. The nostalgia softened everyone's hearts, exactly as Zina planned. But then the images began to shift. First came a blurred screenshot of online receipts. Then, a clear image of their mother's credit card statement with Cameron's boutique purchases circled in red. The next frame showed a series of texts. "Use Mom's card, she won't notice. She never checks that account anyway." Gasps filled the air. Cameron blinked, confused at first, then horrified. What is this?" she stammered, looking toward Zina. And then came the final blow, a short clip, recorded one night months ago. Cameron's voice filled the speakers, laughing. "Zina is so dramatic. She made that ugly little bracelet for Mom and thought it was sentimental. I threw it out." The silence that followed was suffocating. Their mother's hands trembled as she rose from her chair. "Cameron," she whispered, voice shaking. "Tell me this isn't true." Cameron's perfect smile collapsed. "Mom, I didn't mean, it's not what it looks like." But no one listened. The admiration that had once surrounded her dissolved like mist. The relatives exchanged looks of shock and disappointment. Zina stood still, heart pounding. She had imagined this moment for weeks, dreamed of the justice it would bring. And yet, as Cameron's eyes filled with tears, it didn't feel like victory. It felt hollow. Cameron's heels clicked furiously against the pavement as she stormed out of the backyard, her dress snagging on the fence as she disappeared into the night. The laughter, the chatter, the clinking glasses, all of it had died the second her secret flashed across the screen. Now there was only stunned silence and the echo of her mother's trembling voice calling her name. Zina stood motionless in the glow of the projector light, her breath shallow. Around her, relatives exchanged awkward glances, whispering fragments of disbelief. "Did you see that? She used her mother's card? And laughed about the gift?" Her mother sank slowly into a chair, her face pale as moonlight. The locket Zina had once made, The same one she'd found in the garbage, now felt heavier than gold in her pocket. "I didn't want to believe it," her mother murmured, half to herself. "I thought Cameron just made mistakes. But this—" her voice cracked. "I let her fool me for years." Zina knelt beside her. "You didn't want to see it, Mom. None of us did." Her mother looked at her with watery eyes, a mixture of shame and sorrow written across her face. "You shouldn't have had to carry that truth alone." For a brief moment, Zina's chest tightened with guilt. She hadn't wanted to destroy her sister's image in front of everyone, only to show the truth. But truth, she realized now, never came without wreckage. As the guests slowly began to disperse, murmuring goodbyes and shaking their heads, Zina helped her mother back inside. The night felt long, thick with tension and the faint hum of cicadas. By the time Zina finally lay in bed, exhaustion pressed down on her like a weight. Her phone buzzed. Cameron's name flashed on the screen. Zina hesitated, then answered. "What the hell did you do to me?" Cameron's voice was wild, broken between sobs and fury. "You think this makes you better than me? You humiliated me in front of everyone. You ruined my life, Zina." Zina swallowed hard. "No, Cameron," she said softly, her voice trembling but calm. "You did that yourself. I just stopped covering for you." Cameron's breathing came sharp through the line. "You've always been jealous. You never could stand that Mom loved me more." Zina's eyes welled up, but she didn't flinch. "You threw away more than my gift, Cam," she said quietly. "You threw away respect. You threw away every chance I ever gave you to tell the truth." There was silence. Then a sharp click. The call ended. Zina sat in the dark, the phone still pressed to her ear. She felt the weight of years, the jealousy, the favoritism, the imbalance, all crumble beneath the surface of that final conversation. She didn't feel triumphant. She felt emptied. But in that emptiness, there was something new, peace. For the first time, Zina wasn't living in her sister's shadow. She had stepped into her own light, even if it came at the cost of breaking the family illusion. Weeks drifted by like slow-moving clouds after the storm. The house felt quieter, lighter, even, but the silence carried a strange ache. Cameron had moved out 2 days after the reunion, leaving behind only a few boxes, a broken mug, and a trail of bitterness no one knew how to clean up. Her contact photo still sat in Zina's phone, but the calls had stopped. The distance felt permanent. Zina tried not to dwell on it. She poured her energy into her studies, spending long nights at the campus library, headphones in, coffee cooling beside her. The noise of other students helped drown out the memory of Cameron's voice screaming through the phone. Every now and then, she'd scroll through old pictures of the two of them as kids, matching dresses, goofy grins, arms around each other, and wonder when things had started to rot between them. Her mom, however, couldn't hide her regret. One evening, Zina found her sitting in the living room, eyes red and glassy, clutching a framed photo of both daughters at Cameron's high school graduation. "I kept thinking if I just loved her enough," she whispered, "she'd become better. But I think I was blind to who needed my love more." Zina sat beside her, unsure what to say. For so long, she'd craved that acknowledgement, but now that it was here, it only made her heart twist. "You did what you thought was right, Mom," she said quietly. "I just wish it didn't take all this for you to see me." Her mother turned, tears streaking her face. "I'm so sorry, baby. I saw what I wanted to see, not what was real." The apology cracked something open inside Zina, and for the first time in years, she leaned into her mother's embrace without holding back. The hurt didn't vanish, but the wall between them began to crumble. A week later, while cleaning her desk, Zina found the locket again, the same one that had started everything. The hinge was loose, the chain slightly tarnished, but the engraving still shimmered faintly. "To Mom with love." She stared at it for a long time, remembering how it had once lain in the trash, discarded without a thought. That evening, she brought it to the kitchen table, tools spread out like an artist before a canvas. Her mother sat across from her, watching as Zina carefully repaired the delicate clasp, polishing the metal until it gleamed. When she finally placed it in her mother's palm, her mom's eyes filled with tears. "This time," her mother said softly, fastening the locket around her neck, "I know who really loves me." The words hit Zina like sunlight through rain. For the first time, her mother wasn't blinded by charm or favoritism. She was seeing Zina clearly. As they sat together, the locket catching the glow of the kitchen light, Zina realized that truth had done more than destroy. It had healed. Not perfectly, not instantly, but honestly. And that was enough. Months passed like pages turning in a book Zina no longer wanted to read. The noise from the reunion had faded, replaced by a strange calm that stretched through her days. School was steady, her part-time job at the campus clinic was fulfilling, and for once, her mind didn't feel crowded with the need to prove anything. The storm had passed, but its lessons lingered. One chilly Saturday morning, Zina checked the mailbox and froze. Among the usual flyers and bills was a small, white envelope with handwriting she knew too well. Cameron's looping script, still elegant, still careful. Her chest tightened as she ran her fingers over the paper. For a long moment, she just stood there on the porch, heart thudding, debating whether to open it. Finally, she tore it open. Inside was a single sheet of paper. The message was short, written in a trembling hand. "I'm sorry." Nothing more. No excuses, no explanations, no attempts to make things right. Just 2 words, too small to carry all the damage they had caused, yet somehow heavy enough to make Zina sit down on the steps, the cold seeping through her jeans. She read it again and again, waiting to feel anger or satisfaction, or maybe relief. But what came instead was quiet. The kind of quiet that follows acceptance. Cameron's words weren't enough to erase what had happened, but maybe they didn't need to. Some things weren't meant to be fixed, just acknowledged. That evening, Zina went to her room and opened the wooden box she kept on her dresser. Inside were a few pieces of her past. Old photos, a dried flower from her high school graduation, and the repaired locket. She gently placed Cameron's letter beside it, folding the edges neatly as if sealing a chapter. She traced her finger along the locket's engraving, "For the woman who taught me love," and smiled faintly. The pain that once came with those words had softened, replaced by something deeper, understanding. Her mom knocked softly on the door before peeking in. "You okay, sweetheart?" Zina nodded, slipping the box shut. "Yeah, Mom. Just remembering." After her mom left, Zina sat for a moment, staring out the window at the fading evening light. She thought of Cameron somewhere out there, trying to rebuild, maybe realizing what her lies had cost her. And for the first time, Zina didn't wish her harm. She wished her clarity. She whispered into the stillness, "I forgive you, but you'll never fool me again." The words felt final, like closing the door on a room that no longer needed her. As she turned off the light and crawled into bed, her thoughts settled into a single truth, quiet but powerful. Sometimes revenge isn't about making someone suffer. It's about making them see what they threw away. Do you think Zina did the right thing by exposing her sister, or should she have forgiven her in silence? Share your thoughts down below. I'd really love to hear what you think. And if you enjoy emotional stories like this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss the next one.